Most of the time in my videos, I like to talk about manga that are interesting to me in some way. Manga that have great art, cool concepts, thought-provoking characters. But I'm doing something a little bit differently, and I want to look at a manga that has left me feeling very disappointed. The ending is one of the worst endings I've ever read. If you want to talk about rushed, this manga is the definition of that. There will be spoilers all the way up to the end, so there's a warning. The Cage of Eden. The Cage of Eden definitely has a very original and interesting concept. A bunch of teenagers who are coming back from a school trip are stranded on an island when their plane crashes. The first immediate threat they face are animals that should be extinct. I mean, there's also a freaking saber-toothed tiger. It goes from 0 to 100 pretty fast. So as if just surviving on a deserted island isn't enough, they have to deal with some very dangerous predators, and that premise got me kind of hooked. The first three characters we get introduced to are Akira Sengoku, the main character. At school, he's always playing pranks on people, peeping on girls, kind of a class clown that didn't really have anything going for him. He's really just very insecure about who he was, especially because his childhood friend and his best friend are some of the most popular and talented people in his school. There's also Maria, a guy who's at the top of his grade back at the school, but he's also a big loner. He spends all his time by himself just programming and coding, and he's the smartest out of all the people on the island, or at least out of all the students on the island. He's pretty much a walking encyclopedia. The third person we get introduced to is this girl called Umori. She's a flight attendant who is having her first day on the job. Now, let me just get this out of the way first and foremost. It's a very huge thing throughout the series for some reason. The fan service. There's way too much of it. I swear, the author can't go 5 seconds without showing us girls bathing, or really just drawing the girls in some sort of promiscuous way. There are multiple climatic, suspenseful showdowns between the students and some of the threats they have to face on this island. It's really odd when you have these high stakes moments and then you just get that. You're just like, what the hell? At least that's how I was. Somehow the author even throws in some lolly character, and it just really makes you cringe at some of the stuff that's in here. But getting back to Akira, although he's painted as a useless troublemaker in the first chapter, he starts to show that he has what it takes to survive on this island. And the first example of this is when he sees the Daichiyama attacking Umori. He runs in, picks up Umori, manages to bring her to safety along with Maria. And right from the get-go, it shows that Akira isn't afraid of taking on risks, and he's a very selfless person. The first mission that this group has is to look for other survivors. They head over to the plane that they crashed on and find Akira's childhood friend, Rion Akagami. They also come across a camera that shows what happened to the main group of people after they crashed. At first, they were doing alright until night came, and an animal called an Andrewsarchus comes and starts munching on people. After that, it's pretty much straight pandemonium. Everyone runs into the plane and they become hysterical. They start fighting each other, shouting, just falling into despair and pretty much going crazy. And it's around then that the camera cuts out. After this, Akira goes out to use a bathroom and gets knocked out by this kid in a mask. The kid calls himself Hades. This Hades guy ties Akira up over a cliff, and then Hades goes to jump onto him or something. I forget how it all goes down exactly, but I know Hades falls off of the cliff, Akira breaks free, and that's like the last we ever see of him. Well, no, there's one other time he pops up and does absolutely nothing. I thought this Hades villain guy was gonna be a prominent character throughout the series because, I mean, he's introduced as this villain in the very beginning, but really there's nothing that goes on with him. Very pointless. And that's something that I kind of saw throughout the story with some of the other characters that are just tagging along with Akira's group. Like, they'll get their one shiny moment when we meet them, but then after that, they just fall into the background and not a whole lot goes on with them. And honestly, some of the characters in here just be doing the stupidest things for the stupidest reasons. Like, I remember Akira meets a couple of college students. There's this dark-skinned girl, a guy with some bandages covering his face, and another girl who I guess hasn't ever been told no throughout her life. So she tries to win over Akira, tries to get him to fall for her. When that doesn't happen, this girl calls out to Akira, sees if they could go talk in private, and she tries to get with him. And when she gets told no, she goes kind of crazy, falls off a cliff, somehow manages to push Akira off the cliff too. Really, that's it. Like, what did we learn from this? Pretty much nothing. Like, there's some very questionable random moments that are intertwined into the story. After this, it takes like 40 chapters for Akira to find a much larger group than his. And it's from this that we see that one of the main threats of the island isn't just the animals, but also some of the people on it. And trust me when I say this, there are some real nut jobs that have showed up on this island. The bigger group that Akira finds is mainly made up of students. They're building a school because it reminds them of home. But then it turns out the people in charge of the whole project are 2 teachers who are leading the whole project just so that they could have kids work for them and so they could have like their own harem of middle school girls. Did I mention that yet? That all these teenagers are middle schoolers. Eventually, things turn into a whole showdown between Akira and his group versus the teachers, and it's here that Akira really solidifies himself as a leader. So then he becomes responsible for everyone's lives, pretty much. The manga really was an easy read for me. Near the start, you're getting the first look at this mysterious island, being introduced to groups of kids and people trying to survive, learning how certain characters are reacting to a Lord of the Flies type of situation. As the group of students keep exploring the island, the mystery behind it becomes a lot more prominent. We get clues here and there as to what exactly the whole island is and where are all these animals coming from. But it's not until the characters see these man-made objects, these towers that were built on the island, that they start to see what exactly is behind the mystery. I definitely have to warn everyone here because I'm about to give away everything and spoil the ending. In the last like 20 chapters, they learn that the whole island is man-made. It's a Jurassic Park sort of situation. All the extinct animals were made by humans messing around with DNA. That really isn't the bad part. The bad part that completely makes this whole story fall off is when Akira's group finds a gravestone for all the people that were on their flight. Their own gravestone. They somehow traveled to the future, and this never gets explained. Somehow their whole plane like went through some sort of wormhole, although that isn't ever told to us or even shown to us. The only thing that really does get told to us is how this island came into existence. There's this old guy called Isurugi. He's super rich and powerful, and his granddaughter Mina was on the flight. So after the plane disappears and no one hears anything of it ever again, he starts this whole project of building this island in memory of his granddaughter. Of course, the only logical thing to do after losing your granddaughter. But you also have a whole bunch of other people mourning the loss of their children and loved ones, and Akira's mom runs into this Isurugi guy, and he's old, so after he dies, Akira's mom takes over the whole project as a director, and she dedicates the rest of her life to this. And it's on her deathbed that we get the reason as to why she was so determined with seeing the whole project through. And the reason is because she dreamt about Akira adventuring on this island trying to survive with his group of friends. And that's it. That's it. And this all gets explained to you out of nowhere in the last like 5 chapters. The ending felt super cheap. I mean, even without the ending, the story isn't perfect. There's some points in it that I'm just kind of like, meh. But I will say that that premise of, having all these characters stranded on an island, all these teenagers trying to survive, having to fight off dinosaurs, it has a great start. But I don't think I've ever seen a manga with an ending like this. The closest that comes to mind is like Tokyo Revengers, which honestly, even this is worse than that. I also came to learn later on that the ending was rushed because they got axed and the author had to wrap everything up super quickly. So that does explain a bit of it. I'm not quite sure what makes me go find some of the most random manga out there and then make videos on them. But if you read this, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. And although things turned out to be bad, it was fun to go and read. Anyways, I have a couple more videos planned, and they hopefully shouldn't take me months and months to make them. That means more videos pretty soon. But I'd like to say thanks for watching, and peace.